Steelers Nation, what is going on? There's a lot to break down today, and yeah, this one's going to sting a little because the focus is right back where it's been so many times before this season, that offensive line. It feels like no matter what happens, whether the defense locks it down or the receivers show up, somehow the story always circles back to the trenches. And honestly, it should. That's where football is won and lost. This week, as the Steelers get ready to face the Bengals once again, all eyes are locked on Broderick Jones. It's not that he's the only issue, but when things start to unravel up front, that's the name that keeps popping up. Now, let's rewind a bit to that nightmare in Englewood, California. The game film didn't do Broderick any favors. He's had stretches of promise, real flashes of the potential everyone talks about, but this last performance? Man, that was rough. There were moments where he looked unsure, almost hesitant, like he couldn't quite find his rhythm either in pass protection or when setting up for the run. It wasn't just him, of course. No one on that line graded particularly well that night. The Chargers came at them hard, sacking Aaron Rodgers 3 times, hitting him 5 more, and even forcing a safety. It was ugly. You could just feel the discomfort in the pocket, the breakdowns happening before plays could even develop. And yet, if you take a step back and really study what's happening, there's this invisible line forming right across that offensive unit. To the left of center, Zach Frazier, chaos. To the right, pretty solid football. Frazier, as usual, was a steady self, smart, powerful, consistent. Mason McCormick, same story, doing his job quietly and effectively. And Troy Fautanu, that guy has been outstanding, and yeah, even though he was involved in that safety play, the blame doesn't fall squarely on him. Rodgers pretty much created that situation by himself, spinning and stalling until there was nowhere left to go. Fautanu had done his job twice, actually, before that chaos even unfolded. But on the left side, Broderick just didn't hold up the way he needed to. Remember earlier in the season when the line actually looked cohesive for a brief stretch? That was when Darnell Washington was staying in to block, Spencer Anderson shifted to help on the right, and Isaac Sumalo was healthy. That combination gave the Steelers something solid to work with. But in Englewood, Sumalo was sidelined with that pec injury, and without that extra help, things fell apart fast. To make matters worse, Broderick himself was dealing with a groin issue and didn't even practice this week. It's the kind of problem that doesn't just go away overnight. Still, his role is too important to ignore, especially with an eye toward the long term, the 2025 season and beyond. Statistically speaking, his body of work this season tells a mixed story. Over 500 snaps, only 1 penalty. That's progress. We all remember the penalty problems he had last year, right? It felt like every other drive, there was a flag with his number on it. So that's growth. But then you look at the pass protection numbers, 6 sacks allowed, 21 pressures given up, and suddenly you realize why the critics are starting to circle. Those numbers put him in the bottom third of the league among tackles, and that's not where you want your first-round pick to be. Aaron Rodgers was asked about Broderick's recent play after practice, and, of course, he handled it like a pro. He said all the right things, that he's proud of how Broderick's been playing lately, that he's shown real improvement, that he's solid. You expect that from your quarterback. You can't exactly throw your left tackle under the bus when he's the one responsible for protecting your blind side. But if you listen closely, Rodgers' words had another layer to them. He mentioned how important it is to give those guys a little help, maybe a chip block from a tight end or a running back sliding over to assist. And when he said that, it almost felt like he was hinting, hey, remember how well we did in Dublin when we had those heavy fronts? Because that was the game where the Steelers looked balanced, physical, and confident. 6-man, sometimes 7-man fronts, pounding the ball and setting up play action. That's why this whole discussion matters so much. The Englewood game wasn't just a bad night. It exposed something deeper. It showed that Rodgers never had a comfortable pocket. Not once. Go back and watch any drive from that game. You won't see him standing tall, scanning the field, making progressions. He was either running, ducking, or throwing under duress. The Steelers' offense didn't just fail to score, they failed to function. And when that happens, it's not just about one player. It's about confidence, rhythm, identity. So how do you fix it? Well, step one is figuring out where the breakdowns really are. It's easy to point fingers at Broderick because his struggles are the most visible, but it's not only on him. Rodgers himself needs to rebuild some trust in that line. He's got to stop bailing out of clean pockets too early. Stop trying to play hero ball when the play hasn't developed yet. That safety? That was on him. He drifted too deep, panicked, and paid the price. To fix this, he needs to reset mentally, get back to operating within structure, trusting the big guys up front again. And for the coaching staff, maybe it's time to go back to what worked in Dublin. That version of the offense looked big, mean, and physical. They ran the ball effectively, they used play action smartly, and they kept defenses guessing. It wasn't flashy, but it was efficient, and it allowed Rodgers to play his game without constant pressure at his face. Maybe it's not about throwing deep every other play or trying to hit 40 points on the scoreboard. Maybe it's about control, holding onto the ball, dominating time of possession, and wearing opponents down. Look, nobody's saying this team has to turn into a ground-and-pound dinosaur, but you can't ignore what the film is telling you. When the Steelers line up heavy, with Washington staying in to block more often, everything else falls into place. It's not sexy football, but it's effective football. You build confidence in your line, you give your quarterback breathing room, and you start forming that elusive offensive identity everyone's been begging for all season. And that's really the key word here, identity. Because right now, this team doesn't have one. One week, they're trying to air it out. The next, they're trying to run a quick pass system. Then the next week, they're abandoning the run entirely. You can't build consistency like that. You can't win that way. The Bengals game could be the perfect chance to start defining who they are. This Cincinnati defense is weak, no question. It's one of the worst they'll face all season. But instead of trying to torch them with deep shots and flashy plays, the Steelers could use this as a chance to build something that lasts. That means going back to the basics. Get under center. Hand the ball to Jaylen Warren. Let him pound away at that front seven until they start bending. Mix in some play action, keep those tight ends active in protection, and slowly reestablish rhythm. You don't need 40 points. You just need control. You need to feel like the offense is dictating the pace of the game again. And hey, as for Broderick Jones, the talent is there. No one doubts that. The physical tools, the athleticism, the raw power, it's all there. What he needs now is consistency. He needs to feel confident in his assignments, trust his technique, and stop trying to overcompensate. The coaching staff can help by giving him that extra support. Let Washington ship, let the tight end stay in just enough to make defenses hesitate. It's all about balance. The funny thing is, this kind of conversation doesn't grab headlines. It's not the stuff that casual fans love to talk about. But this is where games are really won, right there in the trenches. While everyone's busy talking about Rodgers' arm or the receivers dropping passes, the truth is simple. None of it matters if the offensive line doesn't hold up. That's where this team has to start rebuilding, right at the foundation. And as if that wasn't enough drama up front, there's another storyline quietly brewing beneath all of this. It's not just about Broderick Jones and his ups and downs, but about the way this offense is being run, the way decisions are being made, who's calling what, and how much control Aaron Rodgers really has once he's out there. Because let's be honest, something has fell off. Too often it looks like the play calling and what actually happens on the field are two entirely different scripts, like the quarterback and the coordinator are reading from separate playbooks. Take that game in Englewood again. The Steelers were pinned deep in their own territory and out-trots Caleb Johnson in the backfield. Nothing against the kid, but what are we doing there? You're backed up near your own goal line, facing one of the fastest defenses in the league, and Jaylen Warren isn't even on the field. That wasn't Rodgers making a last-second adjustment. That was pre-planned, scheduled, like the offense had already decided before kickoff that this particular drive would belong to Johnson. It was one of those decisions that makes you scratch your head and wonder if the Steelers are too attached to the script, too afraid to adjust when the situation calls for it. And that's where the confusion really starts. Is Rodgers checking out of runs because he doesn't trust the blocking? Or is Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, calling too many passes because that's what he believes will work? From everything being said around the facility, it's a little bit of both. There's a plan going in, but there's also a lack of flexibility when that plan starts crumbling. The great offenses adapt on the fly. They see what's working, they lean on it, and they keep hammering it until the defense proves it can stop it. But right now, Pittsburgh seems stuck between two identities, the one drawn on the whiteboard and the one that exists on the field. What's even more telling is that Rodgers himself seems to know it. When he speaks, even without directly calling anyone out, you can hear his frustration. He's careful with his words, but the meaning seeps through. When he says he wants Jalen Warren more involved on first and second downs, or even on third, that's not a casual suggestion. That's a quarterback trying to steer the ship back on course. When he hints that the tackles could use more help on the edges, that's not just a being polite. That's Rodgers saying, let's get back to what works. He's played in enough systems to know when things are overcomplicated. Sometimes the solution really is as simple as getting bigger, getting tougher, and pounding the ball until the defense breaks. And you can tell that's exactly what this team needs. The flashy stuff isn't working right now. The trick plays, the quick outs, the fancy motion, all of it looks great when it's drawn up, but none of it's helping this offense find rhythm. The Steelers have the personnel to play bully ball. They've got tight ends who can block like linemen, running backs who hit the hole hard, and a quarterback who still throws one of the best play-action deep balls in the league. So why not lean into that? Why not build around that identity and stop trying to fit into something they clearly aren't? It's crazy because you can see glimpses of what this offense could be. When they line up heavy, when they let Jalen and Kenny Gainwell grind it out, when Rodgers uses play action to find DK Metcalf or pick apart zones, it looks balanced, confident, almost old school in the best way. But then, just as quickly, they go away from it. They get cute, they get pass-happy, and everything falls apart again. That's not a talent issue. That's a philosophy issue. Somewhere along the line, this coaching staff has to make a decision about who they are. Are they trying to outsmart defenses with finesse and tempo? Or are they going to impose their will and play with physicality? And speaking of coaching decisions, this whole dynamic between Rodgers and Arthur Smith has become fascinating to watch. Rodgers has been clear that he's not going to talk publicly about the plays he checks out of. And fair enough, that's standard for him. But you can read between the lines. When a quarterback as experienced as Rodgers keeps repeating that he wants to see more of his best back on early downs, he's sending a message. It's subtle, but it's there. And it's not just about Jalen Warren. It's about balance. It's about rhythm. It's about calling games that actually fit the strengths of the personnel on the field. There's also the question of how much involvement Mike Tomlin has in all of this. He's a defensive-minded coach by nature, but you know he's watching the same film as everyone else. He's seeing the same issues. At some point, you'd expect him to step in and say, enough is enough. Let's find out who we are. Because the longer this offense stays in limbo, the harder it's going to be to build any real consistency heading into the final stretch of the season. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are swirling through Pittsburgh tonight as reports emerge of silent but seismic movement inside the Steelers organization. Sources close to the team suggest that a surprising shuffle may be underway, one that could redefine the balance of the locker room and reignite the fan base's hopes for the season. It all began with subtle signs, a few cryptic social media posts from players, a sudden silence from usual insiders, and an unusual level of activity from the front office. Then came the whisper. The roster window is open again. No names confirmed, no official word from the team, but enough smoke to make fans wonder where the fire is. Speculation ranges from a possible veteran signing to the return of a previously sidelined player. One insider described it as a quiet storm building behind the scenes. The Steelers management, known for keeping negotiations under wraps, seems to be playing this one close to the vest, tighter than ever. They're up to something, said a former team staffer. And it's big enough that people inside the building are acting different. The timing couldn't be more intriguing. With the team's performance hovering in that dangerous space between potential and frustration, a bold roster adjustment could signal a shift in strategy or even a statement of intent. Fans have taken to forums and podcasts, dissecting every clue from who was seen at practice to who wasn't. What makes this rumor particularly electric is its tone of inevitability. This doesn't feel like idle gossip. It feels like the calm before a reveal, a move that's already in motion, waiting for the right moment to go public. Whether it's a trade, a signing, or a comeback, the sense is that something real is brewing in the Steel City. For now, all we know is that the Steelers' front office is moving quietly, but decisively. The question is not if an announcement is coming, but when. And when it does, it might just shake the foundations of the AFC. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.